Bob Mueller's testimony on Wednesday will mark the 89th time he's actually faced Congress in some fashion. This is far from his first rodeo, and we do know he makes a point of being prepared. While the exact plans for Wednesday remain a closely guarded secret, the New York Times reporting Mueller's practice is to meet late into the evenings with staff for days ahead of congressional appearances, studying binders of material and treating the prep a bit like a mock presidential debate, with aides playing particular members of Congress, most likely to be spoiling for a fight. Back with me for our opening argument series is former Acting Solicitor General Neil Katyal, who's argued dozens of cases before the Supreme Court. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
There's been so much talk about the substance, what's in the report, what will he say. We all understand how most hearings, and you know this better than many, how they can devolve. And this was discussed a little bit earlier in the show. I want to play some vintage 2013 Mueller with the devolution of a particularly difficult member of Congress. Take a look.
Your facts are not altogether well.
All right, point out specifically.
May I finish my
point out specifically. Sir, if you're going to call me a liar, you need to point out specifically where any facts are wrong.
We went to the mosque prior to Boston.
Prior to Boston.
Prior to Boston.
Which Mueller are we seeing, and which Mueller are we going to see Wednesday?
Well, I suspect we're going to see both. So, I mean, look, there's a lot of great, decent members of Congress, both on the Republican and Democratic side, who'll ask good questions. But I think Mueller is right to prepare for questions from what can be termed the banana wing of the Republican Party, of which, you know, that representative and there's some others are there. So I think we're going to see some weird questions, but I suspect that, that Mueller's prepared for those as well.
We discussed, and I've quoted some of your interesting questions that you would pose to him. When you see these new reports that the Barr Justice Department continues to try to narrow what will come out of this hearing, what does that say to you?
Yeah, I'm extremely concerned. I don't think it's just narrow. I think it looks like they're trying to gag Mueller and trying to say that anything that's not in the report is presumptively privileged. And, you know, Mueller is so by the book, I suspect that that will influence him greatly, what Barr and others are trying to say in terms of squelching him.
That's big coming from you. Let's pause on that. I used the more loose or broad term of narrow. You're saying you view this new reporting as Bill Barr gagging Mueller and leaning into what Barr knows moves Mueller, whether he agrees or not, which is the rules.
If the Politico report is right, then that does seem to me what it's about. Now, here's a good example of where I think there's going to be a problem. So we know Mueller is by the book, but the book's actually changed, Ari, from the time he turned in the report to now, because he turned in the report and said, I can't indict a sitting president. And indeed, a corollary of that is I can't even accuse someone of saying I would have indicted you or label you a criminal if I can't indict you, because you're not going to have a process to defend yourself. So Barr, a month later, goes before the cameras and CBS News and says, oh, I think Mueller could have reached a conclusion about whether President Trump committed crimes. That's a perfect example of how the book has changed, and exactly the kind of question the Democrats should be leading the hearing with.
Let me push you a little bit. Viewers of our recurring segments know that usually I just listen and learn from you, and you have a lot more litigation experience than I ever did. But I wonder whether, respectfully, you might sound like a little bit of wishful thinking if the logical point you make is supposed to mean that Bob Mueller is going to go farther. I think you're right. The logic of what Mr. Barr said would open the door, but isn't everything we know about Bob Mueller that if he didn't go farther than X in the report, he's not going to go farther on Wednesday?
No, but the whole point is he's by the book. The book said before he turned in the report, according to him, he thought the book said, I can't indict, I can't even label you a criminal. Now Barr comes along a month later trying to criticize Mueller and say, actually, that's not what the book says. The book allows you to do that.
So you think he will go further?
So I think he absolutely should go further. Now, you know, this is going to be, in fact, I think that's the job, right? If you're special counsel, you've got to follow the regulations and what the Attorney General tells you the rules are. He's saying this is what the rule is. So absolutely, I think it's fully within his powers. And indeed, I don't see how he can't answer that question.
I'll make you a deal, Counselor. Let's meet up some other Monday and talk about this again.
Let's do it.
I'd love that. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about something that you drew our staff's attention to. Very important, a little bit off the beaten path, is so-called emergency appeals to the Supreme Court. You look at how Bush used them there, 6, Obama 4, and boom, 28 by Trump, emergency requests, sometimes because they're losing so much. Explain.
Yeah, so you can make an emergency request if you're the Solicitor General to the Supreme Court when you lose a case in the trial court or the Court of Appeals. You do it really rarely. I think I might have done it once when I was there. I think in Obama we did it once every other year on average, 4 times in 8 years. And Trump is doing it an astounding 28 times. We haven't seen anything like this. And the question is what's going on? And I think what's going on is 2 things, and it's supported by reporting in the New York Times and other places of the last couple of days. Number 1 is the Trump administration doesn't really care about the law. Their view is even if we lose in court, hey, we've signaled to our base that we're tough on immigration or whatever. It's all performance. And indeed, they have the lowest rate of success in federal litigation of any administration, and I think ever in the history of since statistics have been tracked. So
that's a really fascinating flag, and it actually is the legal version of fighting without regard to the outcomes because he wants to show fight, as you say. And you know, I got to fit in a break, but it makes me wonder, are they tired of winning? Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.